Hey everyone, and welcome to your Linux, open source and privacy news fix for the end of July 2021. In this one we have Nvidia open sourcing more of their toolchain, Odoo proving that open source software can be not only profitable but also successful, KDE Connect expanding on Windows and maybe on iOS, and the Linux gaming landscape being quite redefined by the Steam Deck's announcement. So let's dive in. But before we begin, Tuxcare is sponsoring a special issue of the Sysadmin magazine in celebration of Sysadmin Day, which was last Friday. You can download this ebook titled 10 Terrific Tools for free using the link in the description below. If you look closely on the webpage, you can also download it without giving any personal information, which is nice. Oh, and Tuxcare is also the sponsor of this video. And if that sounds familiar, it's because Tuxcare is the new brand regrouping kernel care and their extended lifecycle support services. So with Tuxcare, you now get three main services. The first one is live patching. So your Linux kernel, your libraries, your databases, your virtualizations, your IoT devices can all receive automated security patches that don't need downtime to be applied. They are all patched live. Now the second service is providing an extension to the lifecycle of the Linux kernel, which means that you can use a specific version of the kernel for longer and still be up to date in terms of security, even on an end-of-life distro. And third, they also offer support services which are reasonably priced and flexible because they are vendor independent. As a whole, Tuxcare is now an integrated brand of services to automate and improve your Linux operations, so you get more flexibility in choosing the distro you want to run on your servers, when to upgrade it, and you can reduce your maintenance cost without sacrificing security. I left a link in the description below so you can check all the Tuxcare services and get a free proof of concept for your organization. Okay, let's begin with the Linux news, and the Open3D engine, donated by Amazon to the Linux Foundation, is making progress towards Linux support. So ironically, this engine had no running Linux client, or any instructions to compile it on Linux, but developers are fixing that. Fabio Anderegg has managed to get it running, and he has created a separate branch because it's all just a hack for now, but developers are already getting interested in running this lumberyard-based engine on Linux, so it should only be a matter of weeks before we have a stable build and our very own modern 3D engine. And speaking about that, all his work landed in the main projects 2 days ago, so this Open 3D engine can now run on Linux without any issues. The Kythera AI system also announced that they would support this open engine, which means that people who want to develop a game using a fully open 3D engine with modern features will have one more tool to work a bit more quickly. Now, if you like the idea behind Flatpak, to have one packaging format for every distro and virtually solve the app distribution issues on Linux, but you feel that there are still some issues with this format, well, now you can directly contribute to it to help it move faster. The developers have set up an open collective page for Flatpak, which lets users directly fund the project and ensure that any roadblocks or problems can be fixed in a timely fashion by having more developer time attributed to Flatpak. In just 2 days, the project has gathered a small number of pledges. If you want to add your own to the mix, I left a link in the description. On to the open source news, and Nvidia has open sourced more of their gameworks tools, including the RTX Memory Utility SDK, which allows to manage memory when using DirectX ray tracing or Vulkan ray tracing. They also open sourced NVRHI, which is a library that implements a common abstraction layer for Windows and Linux over multiple graphics APIs like DirectX and Vulkan. With the announcement of AMD's Fidelity FX as open source, Nvidia seems to be feeling a bit of pressure and is opening up its toolchain a bit more, which is a very good thing. Maybe we'll even see an open source drivers from them at some point, who knows? Adobe joined the Blender Development Fund as a corporate gold member, which means that they're giving at least $30,000 a month to help fund the development of the open source 3D modeling and rendering tool. I don't think it's really all that surprising, as Adobe doesn't really seem to have a foot in that 3D modeling market from what I know, and since they try to cover all aspects of the creative side of things, maybe they're willing to guide Blender towards integration with their tools like After Effects or Premiere to be able to import 3D sequences and render directly into their own software. Whatever the goal is, it's nice to see Blender being funded because it's an amazing piece of software. Odoo, an open-source ERP and CRM solution, had received $180 million in funding from Summit partners. This might not seem super interesting in and of itself, except once you realize that this is open-source software we're talking about. It's not back-end stuff, it's software designed for end users, accountants, salespersons, marketing, and the like. And that's software that is already profitable. I felt it was interesting to mention since a lot of people always assume that open source software can't make money. We have here an example of a company that is not only profitable, but going head-to-head with the likes of Microsoft and Oracle, all while being open source, with a community edition you can install yourself on your own servers. Moving on to apps news, and KDE Connect is now available directly from the Windows Store. This amazing little program allows you to get Apple levels of phone and computer integration with stuff like shared notifications, the ability to answer text messages from your computer, control music playback on the computer from the phone, and direct transfer of files between devices, and a lot more stuff. So there is now a Windows client of this nice tool that will let users that prefer or are forced to use Windows have that level of integration without resorting to using the Your Phone app from Microsoft, which might have a better UI but isn't open source. This KDE Connect client is still in beta, but it's definitely worth a look if you have an Android phone and a Windows computer. And it also looks like KDE Connect on iOS might be a thing in the future. It had been started as a Google Summer of Code project in 2014, but it never really released in any usable form. It's been picked back up as part as another Google Summer of Code project, and the student has managed to get that 7-year-old code to build and identified a lot of areas where iOS has opened up more. So these APIs might make KDE Connect on iOS possible without using too much battery, without trying to bypass some system limitations, which is pretty cool, because that would mean that iOS devices could finally get better integration with our Linux desktops. Now let's talk about privacy. DuckDuckGo launched a new service designed to protect your email address from trackers. It's called Email Protection, and it works by giving you a duck.com email address that basically just forwards all email you get to your real email address after removing all the email trackers that let marketers know if you've opened an email, when and where you opened them, on which device, or how long you spent on each email. The service also lets you generate randomized email addresses that will still forward to yours, so you don't have to reuse the same one on each website, and so this duck.com address can't be used to profile you. You can also disable any of these addresses you created whenever you want. It's still a beta with a waitlist, but it still looks very interesting, even though we don't know how much it will cost or even if it will be free. Amazon got slapped with a huge fine of $887 million for not complying with the European Union's GDPR, their set of laws to ensure that companies don't collect and use data that users haven't opted in to communicate. Amazon's ad targeting apparently doesn't comply with this set of rules, as it doesn't collect user consent before using said data. Amazon will of course appeal the decision, but these kinds of appeals generally only result in a slightly lower fine. It might be small money for the likes of Amazon, but at least it shows a will of not letting tech giants run around doing whatever they want with user data without any consequences. And let's finish this video with some huge gaming news. So first, at their annual press conference, Ubisoft got asked about the Steam Deck. And they didn't commit to anything, but they did say that if the Steam Deck became big, they would definitely port their software to it. Now what that means is a bit of a blur. Ubisoft tends to not put their games on Steam anymore and leaves them on Uplay or on competing stores like the Epic Games Store. So they could either bring back their games to Steam, so they would work with the Steam Deck, and in that case they'd probably use Proton, or they could use their Stadia ports as a base for a native Linux version. Or they could even bring a native Uplay client to Linux with either games running through Proton or native. Basically, we don't know for now. What matters is that they're open to the idea, as long as the Steam Deck and SteamOS does well. Wine 6.13 was released, and it keeps improving on the UI theming with fully themed scroll bars. It also fixes 31 bugs, including for games such as Perfect World, Doom 3, Far Cry 4, Project Cars 2, The Sims 4, Dishonored 2, World of Warcraft, Inside, Sniper Elite 3, the Battle.net client, or Battlefield 4. And a few days later, Wine 6.14 was released with an update to the Mono engine that runs .NET programs, some work to convert 32-bit stuff to 64-bit, and 30 bugs being fixed, including for WWE 2015, Dishonored Death of the Outsider, which is an amazing game by the way, Pro Evolution Soccer 2019, Fallout New Vegas, Star Citizen, World of Warcraft, GTA 5, Sea of Thieves, EVE Online, or Dead Rising. That's a lot of bugs fixed in 2 weeks. Valve talked about the Steam Deck a bit more in a video interview on IGN, saying that all the games they wanted to be playable were running at 30 FPS and more at the device's native resolution of 1280 by 800. When asked for clarification about the phrase "all the games we want to run," Pierre-Loup Griffet answered that it was really the entire Steam library. He then explained that 30 FPS is the floor of the performance they want to achieve with the deck, which means that some games will obviously run at a lot higher frame rate. The relatively low resolution will definitely help with that, as well as the fact that they're optimizing the connection to the SD card slot to make sure that games installed there will run comparably to those installed on the SSD. This all seems very encouraging, and I can't wait to get my hands on my Steam Deck to try all of these claims out. DXVK 1.9.1 was released, fixing a bunch of performance and stability issues that they had introduced with the rewrite of some DirectX 9 implementations previously. They also improved how textures are handled in DirectX 11 to reduce memory usage, and this should specifically help Roblox on Nvidia GPUs. Bugs and performance improvements are also included for Earth Defense Force 5, Far Cry 1 and 5, as well as other games based on the Dunia engine. GTA 4, Ryzen 3 or World of Final Fantasy also got some love. And finally, Feral, a well-known game developer that has ported a lot of games to Linux, including the Tomb Raider series and a lot of Total War games, has announced that they wouldn't work on a port for Total War Troy to Linux. The game was exclusive to the Epic Games Store, but will arrive on Steam soon, and a Linux port was definitely announced previously. But they feel that the existence of Proton will make this port obsolete. Whether you agree with the statement is a personal opinion, but since Feral's port of Total War games didn't support crossplay with Windows players, and since that has been a real pain in the butt for me to play Total War 2 with my friends, I'd rather take a fully compatible version running with Proton than a port that gets updates 3 weeks after the Windows release and that doesn't play nice with my friend's OS. And that concludes it for this video, guys. It was made possible by Slimbook. If you don't know about them, they're a Spain-based Linux hardware manufacturer and reseller. They've got stuff from the smallest form factor PC to the highest end gaming laptop that you can imagine. They have all keyboard layouts, they ship worldwide. I only use their stuff nowadays and I can only recommend them. So if you want a Linux-powered device, check out the link in the description below. Now thank you guys for watching the video, I hope you enjoyed. If you did, don't hesitate to like and subscribe, or dislike and tell me why in the comments if you didn't enjoy the video. Now if you want to help me support this channel, you can also join my amazing Patreon subscribers and YouTube members and get access to a weekly patroncast and the right to vote on the next topics I'll cover. And if you don't like YouTube, all my videos are also on Odyssey. So thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!